Hey everybody, welcome to another video by Squirrel. This is Squirrel, and this is another topic that I always get pinged on, so I'm happy to do a video as far as to help people out in terms of which is better, Buggy, Truggy. Also, I'm personally biased against the Buggy, so I love me some Buggy. On the same token, this is going to be the differences between Buggy and Truggy. A lot of people tend to get confused because they look virtually the same, but there's little minor differences between them. So Buggies have been around for years and years and years and years and years. I'm a huge Buggy fan. I've always been a Buggy fan. Truggies, on the other hand, started popping up around 04, 05-ish in terms of mainstream. I believe CRT, which is what this is the original CRT. I believe this one came out in around December of 05, I want to say. And this was, I want to say, the first production Truggy out there. Before that, I remember having an OFNA LX that I converted from a Buggy to an actual Truggy itself. As far as putting the longer arms in there, having the monster truck tires, and also taking Buggies and putting monster truck tires on them and make it into what's called a Bruggy, or, you know, monster truck, Buggy, whatever. So there's a lot of different variants of that. Once people started doing that, because that was kind of like a kind of like what scalers and crawlers were, and then there was a push to make it mainstream. Mugen came out with a video way back in the long ago of one of their Truggies, and it was a prototype Truggy racing against Buggies, and you would see this kit, this Buggy-like kit with a truck shell with these huge tires, literally rolling over Buggies, and people were like, "Oh my God, that is so cool!" So Mugen, they released their kit version, or the conversion kit version. I think that was the MBX4, maybe the MBX5. I want to say the MBX4 though. I could be wrong on that. I'm going all off memory on this one. But I believe it was the MBX4 conversion kit before the Truggy actually came out. And then the CRT actual kit, an actual true Truggy designed to be Truggy kit came out. And that's the kit that I have here. So back then there was the MBX5s and then also the 4s. Maybe it was the 5. And people were going, well, if you have the MBX5 Buggy converted into Truggy, you have Buggy value was say $300. Converted Buggy to monster truck was say $400, and then if you had the Truggy, the real Truggy version, I mean, it was like there was this huge difference in deal, and people were being snobs about it as far as which was which. So Truggies actually were very, very cool back in the day, whereas now they kind of fell off the track. The good part about this video, I'm not going to go into too much of that, just for the simple fact that this video is going to be around a lot longer than the current trends. So the Truggy itself traditionally is a cross between the Buggy and the monster truck. Keep in mind, back then monster truck was an actual viable class. Anymore, non-existent. Monster trucks are pretty much only there to have fun and bash with, whereas before people were racing their Savages, their T-Maxes, and their Revos. Now, not so much. Those were replaced with the Truggy, and then the Truggy became, because there's so much momentum built up with the Truggy, it replaced the monster truck class and it became Truggy and Buggy. And because the Truggy had so much momentum, it ultimately replaced the Buggy. Recent trends, as of filming this today, today's August 8th of 2011, Buggy is now big over the Truggy. In fact, not a lot of people are racing Truggy right now, and that race class is slowly starting to die. However, the good thing about RC trends is eventually, later on, Truggies are actually going to maintain popularity again. They could actually take back over the spot over Buggy. It all depends. And what it is you have something hyped up over 1 year, and then the next year people are kind of sick of it and they merge into something else. So that's kind of what happens. Typically, it kind of goes in about 3 to 4 year phases. Right now, again, it's back to electric Buggy specifically. So we're going to go into initial features, the differences, and also Buggy and Truggy pros and cons. So the differences is going to be chassis. Not just chassis length, but also chassis layout. So the chassis itself, they could be the same thicknesses. You're going to have the same layout, three differentials, a center, a front, and a rear. Your differentials are going to have different weights. Typically, Buggies are going to have a lighter weight in them. It's just because of the way they're designed. And they're also going to be shorter. Your Truggy, on the other hand, is actually going to be a little bit longer when you compare your towers to towers. So for this, rear tower is lined up. The Buggy comes in right about here. So it's only a couple millimeters longer, but at the same time, your Truggies are going to be a little bit longer. And also, layout is going to be the exact same thing. 3 differentials, front, center, rear. Now if you had a Buggy layout here, everything would be exactly the same. Typically engine on your left, radio trays, all that sort of good stuff, and all that jazz. Layout wise, everything is the same. Both of them have incorporated the wing, which is one of those things with monster trucks. If you notice, like now the Revo comes with the wing for more stability, more tunability, pretty much because of the Truggy here. Revos used to not be released with wings. Now they're released with wings over that particular type of design, I guess. Truggies also have monster truck tires here. So the monster truck tire is a bigger tire than it would be with your regular Buggy. So size comparison, it's pretty big. Bigger tire, you're going to need a lower gearing, which is what we're going to go into in a little bit, but also a little bit more speed as well. You also have more ride height, which means you have a little bit more suspension in there to actually handle more terrain, which was one of the bigger appeals of the Truggy, is handling more terrain. So with that, you tend to have bigger shocks than what you have on Buggies. So Truggies have a bigger shock. And also, if you look at the angle of the shock, as you get closer out to here, you're going to be more on-road, because as you turn, you want more pressure against it to maintain your flat surfaces, so that this one, the one that's turning on, will actually remain flat as it pivots, and then your other side is actually going to maintain flat, so that you actually have all sides of your tire underneath it completely flat for most traction, which is why Buggies typically come with sway bars along with Truggies as well. And what that sway bar does is it allows the give of an A-arm to go and operate independently, but it also restricts the movement so that you can actually anchor down and have more traction on the other side. So the differences, also truck shell, Buggy shell, common sense there. Differences, now these differences are traditional differences, meaning I can put something out there and there can always be an exception kit. So we're not going to go anal retentive on this. We're not going to go to that fine detail, because each Truggy could be different from each other. But traditionally, they're all going to have that same common theme, though maybe one or two might actually go outside of that theme. It happens. So we can't account for everything, but we can account for the majority. So there might be differences, but typically, gearing wise for a Truggy, because you have the bigger tires, you have more suspension, you have more weight, you have to gear down lower. Now that gearing down lower affects several different things as far as the differences in there. Your differential oils are actually going to be a little bit higher than Buggies, as is one of those things. Your gearing is going to be lower, and at the same time, again with the suspension, that's going to be a little bit more greater, a little bit more monster trucky. Shock wise, Truggies traditionally have a bigger shock. Now traditionally, most Buggies have 14 millimeter shocks. These are going to be 17 millimeter. However, more and more, and it kind of depends upon the company. JQ, for an example, had I believe a 14.5 shock. Other companies tend to have 14. Other companies will release a 14 and then a reversion with a 17 millimeter shock, like the Offna with the Hyper series. So 17 millimeter can appear on a Buggy, but traditionally it's going to be 14 millimeter and 17 millimeters. So you have a little bit bigger board, handle a little bit more of suspension, and also which helps out with the weight of the wheels on the tires. Tires again are going to be monster truck, and the weight of the Truggy is actually going to be heavier, which is another reason why you're going to be gearing down lower. The kit width itself, from tire to tire, is actually going to be wider as far as the stance goes on the monster truck than you would a Buggy itself. A lot of that comes in with longer A-arms. Longer A-arms means longer CVDs, longer rods, all of that sort of stuff. So it's wider, it's taller, it's more monster trucky. Shells obviously is going to be truck over here because it is a Trucky or truck Buggy. And then race class, Right now, as of today, this is starting to go into the back burner, if you will, of racing. More and more emphasis is being placed on short course and also buggy as well. Later trends, who knows, maybe short course will start to decline where people will go to Truggy. Right now people are selling off their Truggies, and once they get their fill of buggies, they may go back to Truggy. Who knows? So, specifically, what is great about each and why I actually own each. This is a lot of fun to drive. I mean, there are times where I drive so many buggies, I'll try something different, and I'll fall in love with it all over again. CRT is definitely that way. So for buggies, they're more nimble. Typically, there's more speed. Typically, you have lower engine sizes, like 0.21. Not saying you can't put a 0.28 in there, but because it is lighter, having a lower engine as far as the type of the case being 0.21, you have all the torque that you're going to need to push it, but at the same time you're going to have a little bit more speed, but also you're going to have more fuel economy. So typically fuel economy is going to go to buggy. Now, I'm not saying that Truggies, on the other hand, are not going to have a 0.21. You can race them with 0.21, you can race them with 0.28. It's just generally 0.28 is going to be more. If you're going to have a 0.28, it's going to be more so in here than you'd have it with your buggy itself. So again, more fuel economy and also traditionally better handling. Sometimes the bigger tires can actually get into the way with it as far as turning and turning ability, as well with the wider stance. So Truggy pros, handles better with jumps. You got more suspension, that's going to obviously be a true thing. So they do handle that a little bit better, typically larger engine sizes and also more stable. So which is better overall? That's up to you to decide, not for me. So with that, that's all I got for this video. Traditionally, with the differences between buggy and also Truggy itself. So with that, thanks for watching. If you think someone else could benefit from this video, feel free to pass it on. Take it easy, guys.